Hey, you hear this tomfoolery? Another spin-off slash remake slash spin-off slash prequel has come out for a popular franchise that everybody dearly loves and has fans for. It's a mad, 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 mad world out there, guys. The Bourne Legacy. It's a sequel. It's also a new step in a franchise. And it can also be the stepping stone for a new trilogy. It stars Jeremy Renner in the lead role, Rachel Weisz, and Edward Norton. The story is basically a continuation of the Bourne Ultimatum, and after a quick turn of events from the ending of Bourne Ultimatum, word gets out about the programs, and there's the tagline for the movie, or part of the marketing, is that there was never just one. It wasn't just Bourne. Specifically, however, information is leaked out about Jeremy Renner's organization, and the big evil agent for this movie, Edward Norton, wants everybody from that organization killed off. And basically everybody's killed off except for Jeremy Renner. And now Jeremy Renner is on the run. Along the way, Jeremy Renner's character, Aaron Cross, meets Rachel Weisz's character, and she's a scientist, and they basically have to try to escape all this madness, just like how Matt Damon and his girlfriend did in The Bourne Identity. Now, let me just speak about how I feel about the original trilogy. A week ago, I had never seen any of the movies, none of them. I watched all three of them on TV. I rented them. A few days after that, I now own the trilogy on Blu-ray. Yeah, I really love them that much. So, the original director is not involved in this movie. Matt Damon isn't involved in this movie, even though there's pictures of him from the original movies, but he's not involved. But who is involved is the screenwriter for the original three movies. His name is Tony Gilroy. And what mighty shoes he has to fill. I mean, this movie wasn't really good per se, but it's not bad. And I'm going to get into that right now. The performances all around in this movie were great. Rachel Weisz is really good in this movie, and if you think she's a damsel in distress, she's really not. She has a nice little arc in this movie that evolves over time. Ed Norton, who is the antagonist of this movie, is really freaking good, but that's to be expected because Edward Norton always puts on a good performance in movies, no matter how good or bad they are. Jeremy Renner is a solid replacement for Matt Damon. I mean, he's no Matt Damon. You can't replace Matt Damon. Jason Bourne is pretty much iconic now, but Jeremy Renner as Aaron Cross is a pretty damn good replacement, for real. As to be expected, this movie also involves the infamous shaky cam that is in the original movies, but in the original movies, shaky cam is done pretty well. It's done pretty well in this movie too. Some shots of cinematography in this movie are really beautifully grand, and they capture a big scope. I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but there wasn't as much action in this movie as there were in the original movies, but what action was actually there was well choreographed, and it was really fun to watch Jeremy Renner kick people's asses. And finally, if I didn't say it already, it's not Treadstone anymore. Treadstone is the original organization for Jason Bourne. The new organization, which name does not cross my mind at the moment, has a new way of giving people these superhuman intelligence and fighting skills. It goes through these pills, which Jeremy Renner calls chems. In my opinion, these chems, these pills, are a clever way to raise the stakes because he has to have these chems every so often, just like how if you have allergies, you have to take a pill every 4 or 5 hours. If you don't, it's not going to fix. Let's get into what didn't work. The story was kind of clunky, and the screenplay was very inconsistent. Whereas the original movies had a good balance between action and dialogue, not to say it's a bad thing, but there's a lot more dialogue than there is action in this movie, and I have no problem with that if the dialogue is interesting and intriguing and it engages you in the movie. But I didn't find the dialogue all that intriguing in this movie. And since there's a lot of talking that isn't all that interesting sometimes, the movie tends to drag, unfortunately. I did say the action was well choreographed, but there's very little action, and when there is action, it is awesome to watch Jeremy Renner kick ass, but it doesn't last very long. It's in very small disperses. And speaking of the action, the big climatic fight in this movie, the big climatic action sequence, the chase and all that jazz, it's good, but it lacked a lot of suspense, and it kind of just ends. And then after that, the movie ends, and it felt kind of anticlimactic. If you've seen the original Bourne movies, you know that Matt Damon's story is very investing and engaging, and you really care for his character, and you want him to find out all these secrets that he doesn't know about Treadstone. In this movie, you're never really given a real reason to root for Jeremy Renner. He's just this guy who is involved in this program. He's just a guy on the run. You can't just expect an audience member to be engaged and to root for this character. You have to give people a good reason to root for the character and be invested. Because if there's no investment, it just weakens the entire movie, everything about it. Obviously, they're setting up a new trilogy, and if they could set up a Jeremy Renner and Matt Damon crossover team-up spinoff, it could make this movie's story that much better. But at the moment, as a standalone, this movie just doesn't sit right with me. Whereas the endings felt right and earned in the original movies, in this movie, in my opinion, it didn't feel earned. It just comes out of nowhere, and I left the theater very unsatisfied. Overall, The Bourne Legacy isn't a bad movie, but it's not a great one either. It's just in the middle. It could have been a much better movie. It could have had a much better flow. It's not at the fault of the actors at all, because the actors were all great. It's all at the fault of the story and the screenplay, and that's unfortunate. I wouldn't say they dropped the ball, but they didn't get a snowball turning per se. My advice is that they want to continue the story. They have to create a very engaging story for the sequel that people can get invested in, because right now, I'm not really invested in Aaron Cross. I don't care about the character, I really don't. Just to say it one more time, and I want to clarify, this was not a bad movie. It was not. It was just disappointing. I'm going to give The Bourne Legacy 3 out of 5 stars. When you see The Bourne Legacy, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it. If you've seen the original Bourne movies, what do you think of those? If you have never seen the original Bourne movies, you may end up enjoying this movie more than a Bourne fan would, because if you're a Bourne fan, you may come out disappointed like I did. But I don't speak on behalf of everybody who's a Bourne fan. This is just my opinion. I was disappointed in it. I just really hope a sequel rights all the wrongdoings of this movie. Please like this video and subscribe above if you enjoyed this review. I'm John from Maffmanjones Reviews. See you next time.